something is wrong inside the Toronto Raptors organization. And I don't mean wrong in the way that a bad losing streak is wrong, or wrong in the way that a couple of questionable roster decisions are wrong. I mean something deeper, something structural, something that has been building quietly beneath the surface for longer than most people want to admit. And what makes this situation so genuinely fascinating and so important to understand is that from the outside, you can almost miss it entirely. You look at the record, you see some wins, you see flashes of brilliance, and you tell yourself things are fine, but they are not fine. And the details that are starting to emerge right now about what is actually happening inside this organization paint a picture that every single Raptors fan needs to see clearly. So if you care about this team, and I mean really care, not just surface level care, then you need to watch this entire video. And before we get into it, if you are not subscribed to this channel yet, fix that right now. Hit that subscribe button, because we cover the Raptors at a level that you are not going to find anywhere else. And on a day where we are talking about the real truth behind what is happening inside this franchise, you absolutely need to be here for this. Let's go. To understand where the Raptors are right now, you have to understand where they came from. And I know we talk about 2019 a lot on this channel, but bear with me, because the championship that year did something to this organization that had both incredibly positive and quietly complicated consequences. Winning a title sets a standard. It creates an expectation. It tells your fan base, your players, your ownership group, and the entire league that you are capable of operating at the absolute highest level. And that is beautiful when you are actually operating at that level. But when you are not, when the roster has changed, when the circumstances have shifted, when the gap between where you were and where you are becomes impossible to ignore, that championship standard becomes a weight. It becomes pressure. It becomes a measuring stick that every single thing this organization does gets held up against. And the Raptors have been carrying that weight for years now, sometimes gracefully and sometimes not. And the strain of it is starting to show in ways that deserve a real, honest conversation. Because here is what happened after that championship. Kawhi Leonard walked out the door. That was always the risk of the trade, and it materialized immediately. And then the organization faced a choice. Do you go all in again with another bold move, or do you trust the remaining pieces to carry the torch? For a while, the answer was trust the remaining pieces. Trust Pascal Siakam. Trust the young players. Trust the development system that had already produced so many success stories. And that approach worked to a degree. The Raptors stayed competitive. They made the playoffs. They had moments of genuine brilliance, but they never quite crossed back over into true contender territory. And the longer that gap persisted, the more questions started piling up. And then the rebuild began. And with a rebuild comes all of the difficult, uncomfortable, necessary conversations that nobody wants to have, but everybody needs to have. Let's talk about leadership, because this is the conversation that I think sits at the very heart of what is happening with this team right now. And it is the conversation that people within NBA circles are having in ways that are not always making it to the public. Every championship team has clarity of leadership. Not just on paper, not just based on contract size or draft position, but real, authentic, undeniable leadership that the entire locker room recognizes and responds to. The 2019 Raptors had that. Kawhi Leonard's presence, as quiet and understated as it was, commanded an entire locker room. Everyone knew the hierarchy. Everyone knew their role within it. And that clarity produced something extraordinary. The question the Raptors have been wrestling with ever since is who provides that leadership now? And the honest answer is that it has not always been clear. Scotty Barnes is developing into a leader. You can see it in the way he carries himself, in the way his teammates respond to him, in the way he shows up on both ends of the floor night after night. But leadership development takes time. It is not a switch you flip. It is something you grow into through experience, through adversity, through moments that test you in ways that nothing can fully prepare you for. And in the absence of crystal clear leadership, you get exactly what the Raptors have shown at various points this season: inconsistency. Nights where they look like a genuinely dangerous team that can beat anyone on their schedule, and nights where they look completely disconnected, like a group of talented individuals who have not yet figured out how to become a cohesive unit when the pressure is on. That inconsistency is not a talent problem. The talent is there. It is a cohesion problem. It is a culture problem. It is a leadership problem. And those kinds of problems do not fix themselves. They require intentional, deliberate action from the people in charge of this organization. Now, let me talk about something that I genuinely believe is one of the most underrated sources of dysfunction on any NBA team. Role confusion. This sounds simple, but it is anything but. In the NBA, players are creatures of clarity. They perform at their highest level when they know exactly what they are being asked to do, when they know how many minutes they are going to play, when they know who the ball is going to at the end of a close game, when they know what their identity on this team actually is, and when that clarity does not exist, when roles are shifting, when minutes are fluctuating, when the hierarchy of shot creation and playmaking is ambiguous, it creates a psychological environment that is genuinely difficult to perform in, and I think this has been a real issue for the Raptors during this transitional period. Who is the primary scorer on this team? Who takes over in crunch time? Who is the unquestioned playmaker when things get tight and every possession matters? These are not rhetorical questions. These are questions that have had different answers at different points this season, and that ambiguity has costs, real costs. The kind of costs that show up in close losses and fourth quarter collapses and moments where talented players seem to be hesitating when they should be decisive. And then there are the trade rumors. Oh, the trade rumors. Look, this is just the reality of playing in the NBA in the social media era. Information moves at an incredible speed. Names get attached to deals before anything is even remotely close to happening. And the players who are caught up in that speculation, who see their names trending on Twitter because some insider dropped a throwaway line about potential trade interest, have to somehow process that and still show up and compete at the highest level. That is genuinely hard. That is a mental and emotional challenge that does not get nearly enough credit in mainstream basketball coverage. And when multiple players on the same roster are simultaneously caught up in trade speculation, the cumulative effect on the locker room environment can be significant. Players start playing with one eye on the standings and one eye on the trade deadline. Agents start making calls. Conversations happen behind closed doors that inevitably create ripples in the team dynamic. And all of it shows up on the court in ways that are sometimes subtle and sometimes not subtle at all. I want to talk about the coaching side of this as well because I think it deserves a fair and nuanced examination. Coaching in the NBA is one of the most difficult jobs in professional sports. You are managing enormous egos, enormous contracts, enormous expectations in an environment where every single decision you make is analyzed by millions of people in real time. And when your roster is in transition, when you have a mix of veterans and young players, experienced pieces and raw talent, players who are comfortable with their roles and players who are still figuring out who they are at the NBA level, the job becomes exponentially more complicated. The rotations that worked last month might not work this month. The game plan that made sense with last year's roster might need to be completely reconsidered with this year's personnel, and the pressure to get results while simultaneously developing young talent is a tension that coaching staffs navigate every single day. I am not here to put all of the blame for the Raptors' issues on the coaching staff, but I am here to say that the system and the personnel need to fit together seamlessly, and when they do not, it creates friction that eventually becomes visible to everyone watching. Now, here is the part of this conversation that I think people are most curious about but least willing to say directly. What is happening in the locker room? What is the actual vibe? Is this a tight group that genuinely believes in each other and is fighting through adversity together? Or are there fractures? Are there competing interests? Are there players who feel undervalued or misused or uncertain about their future with this organization? And the honest answer is that I do not have a camera inside the Raptors locker room. Nobody outside of that organization truly does. But what I do have is the ability to read the signals. And the signals, the body language on the court, the post-game comments, the moments where a team either rallies together or fragments under pressure tell a story. And the story those signals tell right now is of a team that is still in the process of finding its identity, still figuring out what it is and what it wants to be, still navigating the difficult, uncomfortable, necessary work of building genuine chemistry in the middle of a rebuild that has involved significant roster turnover and constant uncertainty about the future. Here's the thing about what is happening with the Raptors right now that I want you to really sit with. None of this is necessarily catastrophic. A team in transition is going to have these growing pains. The fact that there are questions about leadership and role clarity and locker room dynamics is not evidence that this organization is broken. It is evidence that this organization is in the middle of something difficult and important. Building a championship caliber team from the ground up or rebuilding one after a period of decline is not a clean process. It is messy, it is uncomfortable, it involves mistakes and adjustments and moments where the path forward is genuinely unclear. The question is not whether the Raptors are going through something hard right now. They clearly are. The question is whether the people running this organization have the vision, the patience, and the decisiveness to navigate through it and come out on the other side as something genuinely great. And that is where I find myself genuinely hopeful, even in the middle of all of this, because the people at the top of this organization, Masai Ujiri, Bobby Webster, the entire front office structure have already proven that they can do the impossible. They built a championship team once, they made the bold calls, they made the right moves at the right time, they created a culture that produced players like Pascal Siakam, like Fred VanVleet, like OG Anunoby, players who came in as question marks and became legitimate NBA contributors and beyond. That development track record is real, that organizational intelligence is real, and right now they are in the middle of doing it again, building the next version of something great. And the growing pains we are seeing, the questions about leadership and direction and chemistry, those are the price you pay for being in the middle of a genuine rebuild, rather than just pretending to rebuild while actually standing still. The Raptors are at a crossroads. That much is undeniable. The decisions being made right now about the roster, about leadership, about the direction of this franchise are going to echo for years. And I want to know what you think. Is this organization on the right track? Do you trust the front office to navigate through this transition and come out with something worth getting excited about? Or do you think there are deeper problems here that need to be addressed more urgently? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. This is one of the most important conversations in Raptors fandom right now, and I want to hear from every single one of you. And stay locked in on this channel, because as more details continue to emerge about what is happening inside this organization, we are going to be covering all of it.